Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many faces. If your house was like ours this morning, there was so little snow, but so much excitement. My name is Adam Griffith, and I'm a worship associate here and also on the board. We are glad you're here, congregant or visitor. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, however you identify, you are welcome in our faith community. If you are visiting here in the sanctuary or online, welcome. We're glad you are with us. Now let us prepare for worship with today's centering music.
Good morning. Now is the time in our service where we light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Our chalice lighting words are by Katie Gelfand. We call forth the life of our faith by igniting our chalice. This spark of new beginnings invites us into a sacred space to reflect where we have been and where we are going. Even knowing that this particular flame will intentionally end with our ritual extinguishing, we fear not its end, for we know with brave hearts that from every ending of our lives, we are sent forth to make a new beginning.
This morning's reading is from Tania Marquez. It is a wonder and mystery that our paths have crossed, that in the immensity of time, in the vastness of space, we coincide here. I am in awe at the ways in which our lives intersect and intertwine, at the beauty we create when we gather. May our coming together make us more compassionate, more just, more caring, and more loving. May our hearts and minds be open to this offering. I am so glad you are here. Let us worship, let us marvel at the miracle of being here right now, and at the mystery that has brought us together. Now we rise in body or spirit and sing hymn 360, Here We Have Gathered, and the words will be on the screen.
If you're using the hymnals, there is a word change. In the second verse, we will replace the words women, children, and men with living out our span. That's in the second verse if you're using the hymnal, but it's on the screen.
Good morning. I'm Jen Johnson, one of the religious educators here in this congregation, and I'm going to share the wisdom story with you today. I brought something along with me to help with that. I wonder what's in this box. I'm going to ask the front row and floor sitters to help me figure that out. So we're going to peek at it inside together. I'm going to be off mic for a second, but I'll return and let you know what they say. All right, they found a bolt that I didn't even know was in there, a screwdriver, a hammer, and a wrench, I think. I wonder what that has to do with my story. Today's story is called Old Joe and the Carpenter, an Appalachian Tale of Building Bridges by Pleasant L. Despain. Old Joe lived way out in the countryside, and he had one good neighbor. They had been friends all their lives. And now that their spouses had died and their children were raised, all they had left was their farm and each other. But for the first time, they had had an argument. It was over a stray calf that neither one really needed. It seemed as though the calf was found on Joe's neighbor's land, and so he claimed it as his own. But old Joe said, "Oh no, that calf has the same markings as my favorite cow. I recognize the calf as mine." Well, they were both a bit stubborn, so they just stopped talking to each other. It seemed that a dark cloud had settled over old Joe until there came a knock at his door 1 week later. He wasn't expecting anybody that morning, and as he opened the door, he saw a young woman who had a box of tools on her shoulder. She had a kind voice and dark, deep eyes, and she said, "I'm a carpenter, and I'm looking for a bit of work. I wonder if you might have some small jobs I can help with." Old Joe brought her into the kitchen and sat her down and gave her some stew that he had on the back of his stove. There was also home-cooked fresh bread, churned butter, and homemade jam. While they were eating and talking, Joe decided that he liked this young carpenter and said, "I do have a job for you. Look right over there through my kitchen window. See that farm over there? That's my neighbor's place. And do you see that creek running right down between our property lines? That creek, it wasn't there last week. My neighbor did that to spite me. He took his plow up there and dug a big old furrow from the upper pond and flooded it. Well, I want to do him one better. Since he wants us divided that way, you go out there and build a fence, a big, tall fence, so I won't even have to see his place anymore." The carpenter said, "Well, if you have the lumber and the nails, I got my tools, and I'd be happy to build something that you'll like." Joe had to get to town to get some supplies, so he hitched up the wagon and showed the carpenter where everything was in the barn. The carpenter carried everything she needed down to the creek and started to work. The carpenter's work went smooth and fast. She did her measuring and her sawing and her nailing, and it was sunset by the time old Joe returned. The carpenter had finished her work. When old Joe pulled up in that wagon, his eyes opened wide and his mouth fell open. What do you think he saw? A big fence, a wall, a bridge. There wasn't a fence there at all. It was a bridge going from one side of the creek to the other. It had handrails and all. It was a fine piece of work. His neighbor was just starting to cross the bridge, and he had his hand stuck out. He said, "Joe, you're quite a fellow to build that bridge. I'd have never been able to do that. I'm so glad we're going to be friends again." And Joe, he put his arms around his neighbor and said, "Oh, that calf is yours. I knew it all along. I just want to be your friend too." About that time, the carpenter started putting her tools in the box and hoisted it on her shoulder, started to walk away. But Joe said, "No, wait. Come back. I want you to stay on. I've got lots of projects for you." The carpenter just smiled and said, "I'd like to stay on, Joe, but you see, I can't. I got more bridges to build." So she walked on, and there ends my tale. I wonder what part of the story you liked best. I'll just let you think on these wondering questions. I wonder how this story would have been different if the carpenter had built a fence. And I wonder where you are in this story. Now, children and youth, it's time to go out to your religious exploration classes. We'll sing you out in just a minute. You'll go to the Sandberg Hall or foyer to meet up with your classes. You can just look for your leaders with the grade signs to know where you're supposed to go. And parents, if you're visiting today for the first time, we just ask that you escort them out so you'll know where they are at the end of the service when you can pick them up. Thank you. Now, congregation, let's sing them out.
I don't know about you, but every time I am at this pulpit and we sing out our children and our youth and their facilitators, and we are halved in attendance here, I can't help but be so grateful for this faith that nurtures and cares for its children, and all of the adults that give of their time to do their spiritual practice, not here, but with our children. Because indeed, teaching our children is a spiritual practice. And so today, as we gather for our own faith development, as is our custom, we take a moment in the center of our service for reflection or meditation or prayer, followed by a moment of silence. And this morning, I offer you a prayer adapted from the words of my colleague, Reverend Kristen Schmidt, who is offering her version to her congregation at this time. I invite you to relax, to close your eyes or to lower your gaze and just take a few deep breaths. And if you meditate or pray, I just invite you to listen. Spirit of life and love, we give thanks this morning for our gathering in this sacred time and space. We give thanks especially for everyone who volunteered to help make the election safe and accessible for voters. Whether writing postcards, phone banking, canvassing neighborhoods, serving on election day as judges, poll workers, or in some other roles, we give thanks for their service. We are grateful that Tuesday's elections drew so many people out to vote, and that the elections unfolded without violence and minimal voter intimidation, which many of us feared. We are grateful that in many cases, not all, candidates who share our values prevailed to support the integrity of the vote, uphold our democracy, and support reproductive justice. This morning, we also lift up veterans, all those through the generations who've served. We acknowledge family and friends whose loved ones were sent forth into danger in all our names, regardless of our stance on this practice of our society. Some never returned, others returned home never to be the same. We also lift up the many LGBTQI veterans who could not be out during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, whose partners and families didn't receive the open support and care that other veterans' families did. To say thank you for our veterans, for their service, their sacrifice, will never be enough. And so we pray this morning for strength, commitment, and healing. We pray for healing for our country and our world, so that one day nations won't need to send people's babies and siblings, spouses and friends into danger to solve complex problems. May we each do our part to work for justice. May we build bridges instead of fences so that peace is possible. May it be so. Let us share a moment of silence. And now is the time in our service when we make space to acknowledge any joys or sorrows that we bring with us in our hearts. And we light a candle to represent the joy or sorrow that accompanies us. So at this moment, I invite you to come forward if you would like to light a candle for yourself or for another at this time. If you lit a candle for a joy in your life, know that this community rejoices with you. If you lit a candle for a sorrow, know that we hold you in love and care. And Adam will light a final candle for those joys or sorrows not shared, and for those of our community who is not with us today.
We're going to do a little bit of an improvised piece for y'all. My name is Quetzal, and I'm really happy to be playing cello for you today. See what happens.
Thank you, Quetzal. That was perfect. You know, this morning, as I'm going to invite us to explore how we are living on the threshold in so many ways, I can't cover all the ways, but I will invite you to think about how we're living on the threshold of congregational change and denominational change. So those who are visiting are going to learn a little bit more about Unitarian Universalism. And I think your comment on let's see what happens is the attitude that I would like to invite us into during this reflection that I offer you this morning. And I begin with a time in my life when I had to be open to see what happens. And it occurred many years ago when my partner and I were living in Colombia, South America. And at that time, the political situation was very unstable. The drug cartels were terrorizing the country, and street crime was a constant concern. And we had one young child and a second child on the way. And although Colombia is my native land, and I loved being with my family and with my friends, and I loved the art and the delicious food and the amazing biological diversity, we just simply did not feel safe, and we could not stay. We couldn't risk the safety of our family. And so we were on the threshold of a very big change. Do we go back to the States? Do we look for other jobs? And again, it was a privilege because many of the people in Colombia could not leave like we did. And so Steve was offered a job opportunity in the small town of Cruz das Almas in Brazil. And if you can imagine, this was before the internet, so I really couldn't Google it. And I was 7 months pregnant at the time, so I couldn't travel. So there was no little avatar that I could follow around the town, if they even had that available, to check it out. Nevertheless, because it was an opportunity to live in a safer place and explore a new culture and learn a new language, I was in. I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's go to Brazil. So we moved to the state of Bahia in northeastern Brazil with an infant, and then with a toddler, and then an infant who was 3 months old. And yes, it was more peaceful, and there were also new challenges to overcome. Because in Cruz das Almas, there was municipal water every third day, there was limited medical care, and rampant inflation. Every day the prices went up on the food in the supermarket, and they were constantly changing the prices. And so I was tempted to feel sorry for myself, which I did. I did spend a few months of just being utterly depressed. And I thought, maybe I can blame this all on Steve and complain to him. It was his idea, and I said yes, but it was, he was the one that brought us here. Or I could make the best of it. And I decided to do the latter, even though at times it wasn't easy. But by the time our 3 years in Cruz das Almas was up, I didn't want to leave. So you may have heard the saying, you can't direct the wind, but you can adjust your sails. And those years in Brazil taught me to adjust my sails. And I know that I learned to adapt to those things that for me amounted to a mere inconvenience. And I was challenged to embrace what I was dealing with and figure out how to work with it. To embrace that change that I was experiencing from the comforts that I was used to, and not to fight it. And in that process, be transformed. And I believe that that experience did change me. Reluctantly, maybe, but it did change me. And in that same way that I remember that change, when I think of this congregation, I feel that this congregation, and as many of you sense, is on the threshold of change. Our search committee has diligently and enthusiastically reached out to you to explore your dreams and hopes for this congregation. What inspires you? What challenges you? What congregational history and work are you proud of? What things can we let go of or explore doing differently? Because that's all part of moving from the people we have been for the last few years to the people that we can be at a time after 3 years of COVID, which COVID is still endemic. those times have changed us. Our needs have changed us. Our country has changed. And the question is, what does a congregation like ours do in this time? What is our call in this time? And it may be that we need to rethink our priorities and how we are doing things. And and I find it interesting that the work of the search committee has occurred alongside the Meet the Moment campaign, because the Sunday testimonies that were shared during that time, and for those of you who are visiting, we had a budget shortfall, and so we had to do what's called a second ask of this congregation. And people stepped up. They met the moment. And what inspired me most was hearing the testimonies from our parents, from our youth, and from our elders, sharing why this faith community matters to them. And one of the testimonies in particular was by one of our elders, Anne McLellan, who asked us a series of questions. She asked, "Why are you a Unitarian Universalist? Why are you here as part of UU Asheville? And if you're a guest, why are you visiting? What brought you here today?" And then lastly, how do the 7 principles of our faith come alive in your actions? How do they go beyond being aspirational to being motivators for how we act and how we engage in the world today? So this is an exciting time for our congregation, and your willingness to meet the moment will be inspiring to any potential minister that is trying to figure out where their next call is going to be. And I know that alongside that, approaching that threshold of new leadership, maybe a new vision, maybe a new direction, can be exciting and also can be very scary, because we often are used to the way things are. And in this time of so much change and so much disruption, comfort with the way we've always done things is to be expected. So what I am inviting you to do today is to remain curious, to see what happens. And there's an old Chinese story that I find helps me put this in perspective, and it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, his neighbors came by to commiserate. "This is most unfortunate," they said. The farmer said, "We'll see." The next day, the horse came back bringing 7 wild horses. The neighbors came back and said, "Oh, isn't that lucky?" What did the farmer say? The following day, his son tried to train one of the horses, and what do you think happened? He hurt himself. So the neighbors came by and said, "Oh dear, isn't that too bad?" And what do you think the farmer responded? The next day, recruiters came around to enlist people in the army. They rejected his son because he had a broken leg. Again, the neighbors came around. They said, "Isn't that great?" And again, the farmer said, "What would it be like if we were able to handle these threshold moments with a we'll see attitude?" And it's an attitude I wish that our Asheville community would look at as we think about the Merriman Avenue Road Diet and the reduction of lanes for cars, and say, "We'll see instead of getting on Nextdoor or Facebook and just, voicing whatever our opinion is with a little bit of sometimes discourtesy for each other. A will see attitude invites us to be open to uncertainty, to let go of being wedded to specific outcomes. And I believe in my heart that this will see approach is going to be crucial for our denomination in this moment. Does anybody know why? Has anyone heard of the Article 2 Commission? Okay, I see maybe 2 hands up, 3, 4, 5. Okay, some of you know. So the Article 2 is a document that is in our bylaws. And I know that, bylaws, governance, yuck, we don't want to hear about that. But this is important because that document has our 7 principles. That document has the sources that inspire our faith, and it also has the purposes of our denomination and our congregations, our association of congregations, and the statements of belief and inclusion. So just to give you an idea, I'm not going to go over all of them, but a commission has been charged to revisit this document, which hasn't been revisited in 35 years. And I think as I was reading the work that was done by the commission, what they are trying to do is reflect that we have acquired a greater understanding of systemic oppressions and how they persist despite congregations and their members affirming and promoting our 7 principles. So I'm just going to invite you to just take a look. This may be a little bit too small, but our principles basically are what we affirm and promote so that our world, our communities, and we can be better people. And they talk about respecting the inherent worth and dignity of all, the right to democratic process, the right to search for truth, and the importance of caring for each other in our environment in a nutshell. So this, for many of us, these principles have been what guide us and inspire us and call us to maybe be Unitarian Universalists and to be part of a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Now, this does not include the 8th principle, which is a principle that is being proposed and that we are learning about in the congregation, but these are the principles that are in that document. Now, the draft that has been put forth by the commission that was appointed by the board of the denomination proposes a statement of values and covenants instead of this list of principles. So here's a slide that highlights the main values that are going to be replacing the 7 principles. If that indeed is what happens, let's not panic. This is just a conversation. And I think what I find really cool is that all of this is centered and grounded in love. And I remind us that we're not talking about sentimental love, we're talking about agape love that Martin Luther King talked about, that is about goodwill to all, those like us and those not like us. So that's the kind of love that they are highlighting as grounding those values. So what I am going to, we can take down the slide, so what I'm going to ask us to do right now is to just take a moment and either close our eyes or just lower our gaze, and Adam and I are going to read just the proposed covenants and values that are in the draft to replace the principles. And again, I just remind you that this is not a done deal.
We work to be justice. This is about justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all people thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression within individuals and our institutions, We are accountable to each other for this work.
Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely share our faith, presence, and resources. Compassionate generosity connects us to one another in relationships of mutuality.
Evolution. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Evolution is fundamental to life and to our Unitarian Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect.
Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, theology, and experience. We covenant to learn from one another and openly explore the depth and breadth of many wisdoms. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect.
Equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain a fully inclusive and accessible community of communities.
Interdependence. We honor the sacred interdependent web of all existence. With humility, we understand our place in the web. We covenant to care for and respect the earth and all beings by fostering relationships of mutuality. We work to repair the bonds that have been broken. So that is the draft. And I wonder how this reading made you feel and what you think about this change, which would be a big shift in terms of having been focused so much on the principles. And the reason why I kind of rewrote my sermon at the last minute to include this is because your feedback is important. And there are opportunities for you to fill out a form that will be in the e-news, giving feedback to the commission about your thoughts about these changes. So on the website and in the e-news tomorrow, there will be a link to all of the changes in Article 2 and a link to the Google form so that you can give some feedback. And I think, personally, when I review these, I do think that it is nuanced and also an incomplete restatement of our values. What I like is that it seeks to accommodate growth in our understanding of the challenges that confront us as people, as a nation, and as congregations, the fruit of our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Indeed, if we were not to embrace a periodic reevaluation of our principles, it would be to deny the product of our search for truth and meaning as we evolve and the challenges confronting us and our understanding of them continues to evolve around us because there is constant change. However, this proposal, I think, and I could be wrong, it still needs work, and that again is why your feedback is important. So the next steps are that this proposal will go to the board of the UUA in January. If approved by the board, it will go to our General Assembly in June of 2023, and there people will hash it out and talk and give feedback, and if they are able to come to a consensus and vote, it will come up for a final vote in 2024. So there are a lot of ifs here, And I guess this is one of those times where we'll see and we invite you to participate, because we'll see doesn't mean that we don't do our due diligence. So this is really a historic process for our denominations, and the discussions are really profound. There have been some Zoom conversations. Yesterday, I sat in with 132 UUs from all around the country, hearing their thoughts and their feelings about these changes, and it was so compelling that I'm doing it again on Monday with another set of UUs to stay informed about what people are saying to this. And for our congregation, I will host a discussion on November 30th, and it will be in person and then also in Zoom in the evening, so be on the lookout, because I even think that for our own congregation and for the changes that we are looking to in the future with new ministerial leadership, it will be really interesting to think about these values and what they mean for us as a congregation, and to hear each other's thoughts about the proposal. So let's see what happens as more UUs pay attention to the Article 2 Commission proposal. And until then, until a decision is made, may we be inspired to remain engaged and curious as this congregation and our Unitarian Universalist Association stories continue to unfold. So let's go beyond we'll see, and let's get engaged in this process. May it be so, and may we do so. Thank you. And now let us sing, rise in body or spirit for our hymn 1023, Building Bridges.
So I'm going to play the tune first so you can hear it, and then we're going to sing it together, and then we're going to try to sing it as a round. So first the tune, we sing it together, then pause, and I'll give instruction on how to sing the round. All right, here's the tune. Okay, so sing with me. Here we go. And building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Good. Now, this group is going to go first. This group is going to go second, so I will cue you when it's your turn, so don't jump in until I cue you. Let's see if we can make this work, and we'll see what happens. Here we go, and...
pretty good, pretty good. Yeah. I've known Les for a long time. No news is good news, right? Now is the time in our service where, if you're comfortable and a visitor, you can feel free to introduce yourself and, broadly interpreted, tell us where you're from. I believe that someone with a microphone will come up to you if you're comfortable.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Adam Roberts. I'm visiting from Reading, Massachusetts. I'm here to see my parents, Iris and Clyde Harden.
Welcome, Adam.
Hello, I'm Linda Morrison. I moved to Fletcher in April and from Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm excited to be here. Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
I'm Matt Ferris. I moved to Weaverville in beginning of April, and now I'm in Swannanoa, and I'm in my second year of seminary to be a UU minister. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for your hospitality.
Welcome.
Hello, I am Ray Collins. I just moved back to Asheville. This is my third time in this building, and I always feel welcome. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So we are the Davisons. My name is Maripa, and Tim, Bella, and Booker are downstairs. We moved from Chicago in November of last year, and you too. And we're happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Kyle Gerstner, and seeing as how I'd like to follow up a fellow Chicagoan as well. I just moved here recently, and but I'm originally from Wisconsin, so go Pack go. But but I moved to North Carolina for a job a couple weeks ago, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. Going once, going twice. Awesome. Well, it's great to see so many of you. Some of you may become members. Some of you may become ministers. We'll see. Yeah. Our announcements run as slides at the beginning of the service. If you missed them, just refer to Thursday's weekly e-news, as everything is described there. After an extended hiatus due to the pandemic, the UU Asheville Holiday Craft Fair is back. It's true. Come shop for holiday gifts from the UUCA members and friends before and after the November 20th service. That's next Sunday, right out here. One of the featured artists will be MZ, a member of the Afghan family our UU Welcoming Circle continues to support. She will be selling beaded jewelry. Please bring cash or checks, as most of the artists do not accept credit card. Our community plate recipient this month is Beloved. Thank you for your generosity last Sunday in donating food for the Beloved Pantry we sponsor. Today's offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you. We have been blessed today with Quetzal's music. We are indeed grateful. We are also grateful for the gift of your time, your talent, and your treasure, which allows this congregation to do the work that we need to do to be the best people we can be and to be part of transformation of our world. So thank you. Our closing words this morning are by Reverend Robin Gray. May the flame of our community ignite a love bold enough to share, and in return, may we all be embraced by a love that remains constant in times of sorrow and in days of great gladness. And now, before we join in singing our closing song, I have one reminder. There will be a drumming circle at 1 o'clock here in the sanctuary to benefit Doctors Without Borders, who are doing a lot of work supporting people in Ukraine. And we have a postlude today that I invite you to feel free to dance to if you are so moved. So let us sing, and then maybe let us dance. Please rise, embody your spirit, and let us sing our closing song.
Spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, nothing
It's like
more.
your whole life you've been training for this moment, and when the time comes you just disown it, meaning you just surrender, don't control it. Not interested in the clay pots and molded, or sitting next to the path trying to unfold it, or waiting for the fruits to fall down toward you. Let it go and now you're flowing, feeling quite gorgeous, so you take steps away instead of towards it. What a rush, feeling freedom with nothing to hold. We've been taught that what you touch will always turn to gold, and now we're learning when we let it go it overflows with no credit to take, cause no credit is home. A higher power working deeper where the seeds are sowed, and when the seeds are true, then they're seeds of gold. But the real gold is joy when life starts to flow, and when it does, you just smile, cause now you know. I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. Let the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds. Whatever grows,
Yep.
will
When
grow.
it grows, it grows.
Whatever dies, will
And when it
die.
dies, it dies. Come
Whatever
on.
works, will
If it works, it works.
Whatever flies will
Let it fly, let it
Whatever
fly.
fails will
When
fail.
it fails, it
What's meant
fails.
to soar will soar.
when it soars, it soars.
I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will grow.
Let it grow, let it
Whatever
grow.
dies will
If
die.
it dies, it dies.
Whatever works will
When it works, it works.
Whatever flies
Yeah.
will fly.
Let it fly, let it
Whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
If it fails, it
What's meant
fails.
to soar will soar.
Let it soar.
I am planting seeds.
And nothing more.
Whatever grows will
Let it grow, let it
Whatever
grow.
dies will
If it dies, it
Whatever
dies.
works will
When it works, it works.
flies
Yeah. Let it fly, let it
Whatever
fly.
fails will
If it
fail.
fails, it fails.
To soar will
Come
soar.
on, let it soar.
I am planting seeds.
And nothing more.
You know, when you smile, it just helps someone to know that you're cared about and that you love them.